Today, we are looking at something pretty big in the news, these new U.S. tariffs on imports.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at a transcript from We Are Iowa, Local 5 News, and their coverage of President Trump announcing these tariffs. So what we really want to do is understand what exactly these tariffs are all about, why they're being put into place, and of course, what could be the economic consequences for you.
Right.
You know, me, you, your neighbor down the street, everyone.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think the scope of these tariffs is something that really jumps out. I mean, we're talking about a 10% tariff on, well, just about everything coming into the U.S.
10% across the board. Wow.
Yeah, across the board. But then on top of that, there are some even higher tariffs targeted at certain countries. So we're talking about a 34% tariff on all goods from China.
Wow, 34%.
25% on products from South Korea. 20% on anything coming in from the European Union. And this is on top of that initial 10%.
So if I'm buying something from China, it's not just 10% more expensive, it's 44% more expensive.
You got it. And then on top of all of that, there's a flat 25% tariff on any cars or auto parts coming into the U.S. And that one actually went into effect just today.
Cars and auto parts, that's huge. I mean, so many people rely on cars to get to work, to get around. This is going to impact a lot of people.
Absolutely. And, in the news report, there's this business owner they interviewed, and they're already worried.
Yeah.
They're saying that, all these tariffs mean their costs are going way up, but they're not making any more money. So what are they going to do?
They're going to pass that cost right on to the consumer.
Exactly. Raise prices. And that's something that the economists who are quoted in this report are really concerned about. They're saying pretty much point blank that it's going to be the average person, the consumer, who's going to feel the real impact of these tariffs.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense if you think about it. If all of a sudden all these imported goods get a lot more expensive, well, stores and businesses, they're going to have to raise their prices to make up for that. It's simple economics. And if there's less competition from those cheaper goods coming in from overseas, there's no reason for them to keep their prices low.
Exactly. No incentive. Now, of course, the big question is why?
Why do this?
Right. Why are these tariffs being put in place? And President Trump, he's pretty clear about his reasoning.
What's he saying?
He's saying that this is all about making American manufacturing more competitive.
Okay, so the idea is that if you make all these imports more expensive, then stuff made here in the U.S., suddenly it's not so expensive anymore.
Right. It's all about trying to boost domestic production. And, then you've got Governor Kim Reynolds from Iowa. She's got kind of a different take on it.
What's her angle?
Well, she's looking at these tariffs like they're a bargaining chip,
Like a liver.
A lever, exactly, to pressure our trading partners, to get them to come to the table, to really prioritize American businesses and farmers.
American farmers, especially in a place like Iowa.
Exactly. And so her big concern is protecting people in Iowa, working with the administration to minimize any negative effects that these tariffs might have in the short term, but at the same time, keeping an eye on the long game.
The long game, which is?
Keeping the agricultural economy strong and creating new opportunities to sell American products overseas. So you can see it's not as simple as just these tariffs are good or bad.
No, definitely not.
There's a lot of moving parts here.
For the average person listening, we've got all this talk about international trade, but how does this affect, say, the price of a T-shirt or a new TV?
Yeah, that's the question, right? I mean, in the short term, if those products or the materials that go into them come from overseas, well, you could definitely see prices go up. On the other hand, if those things are made here in the U.S., maybe the prices will stay stable or even go down as demand increases.
But that all depends on if those businesses decide to pass those savings along.
Right, and that's a big if. And it's not just about individual products, it's about whole industries. Some industries that rely heavily on imported parts, they could be in trouble.
Trouble? How so?
They're going to be facing much higher costs right off the bat. Whereas other industries, especially ones that make products that directly compete with those imports, well, they might see a sudden surge in demand.
Interesting.
Yeah, but things are never straightforward in economics.
Right.
And these shifts might not always play out in a predictable way.
Okay, so let's recap here for everyone listening. We've got these significant tariffs, they're in place now, and they're affecting a wide range of imports. The goal is to help American manufacturing.
Right, make it more competitive.
But it's very likely that consumers are going to be paying more for a lot of things.
At least in the short term.
At least in the short term. And these trade negotiations and, keeping key sectors like agriculture strong, that's a big part of this whole strategy.
Absolutely. This isn't just about economics. It's about politics. It's about global relationships. It's complicated. So here's something to think about as we wrap up. We've talked about the impact on prices now, but what about 5, 10 years down the line?
The long game.
Exactly. How are these tariffs going to reshape global trade? How are they going to affect our own economy here at home over the long haul? It's something to really keep an eye on because the consequences, they could be far-reaching.
Thanks for breaking that down. That's a
Yeah,
lot to consider. We'll have to revisit this for sure.
absolutely. Until next time.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.